I'd like to call this meeting to order of the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Can I get a roll call of commission members, please?
Commissioner Hofree.
Here.
Commissioner Rubis.
Here.
Commissioner Cohn.
Here.
Mr. Cohn's here on Zoom. Commissioner Broyles.
Here.
Commissioner Clayton. Here. Commissioner Deppler.
Here.
Commissioner Deppler's here on Zoom as well. Commissioner Jackson. Chair Beatty.
Here.
Councilmember Brost.
Here.
And Mayor Boland.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Tonight on the agenda, we have 3 letters of recommendation, 3 information reports, 2 correspondence items, 2 site development plans or preliminary plats, and 3 other items. Can I get an approval of the minutes from November 6th, please? Motion by Commissioner Broyles. Is there a second by Commissioner Clayton? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain?
Stay.
Motion passes with 1 abstention. Thank you.
Ms. Deppler staying.
Oh, 2 abstentions. All right. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
Mr. Chair, if you haven't noticed, Mr. Young is not in attendance tonight at the dais, but he is on Zoom, so he's a little under the weather and trying not to spread it to everybody else. So we thank him for that.
Definitely. Thank you. All right. At this time, we'll open it up for public comment. And as a reminder, 3 minutes per comment, and we'll give you a 1-minute warning. Mr. Newberry?
Mr. Chair, the first comment card is from Mr. Parsons.
Good evening, Mayor Boland and fellow commission members. I'm Stan Parsons. I live at 2425 Etherton Road in Wildwood. I wanted to talk about latitude 38 a little bit, but in conjunction with that, I wanted to talk about infrastructure. Now, ever since we started discussing this development and so forth, it seemed to me always that the main issue was Crestview Road turning into Main Street. We've got a Main Street all the way through to Town Center, and that was always the priority to begin with. Currently, Crestview, I wouldn't even ride my bike down that street. It's in pretty bad shape. Main Street needs to still be a main consideration, and I hope it continues to be. I drive down Etherton Road all the time. There's no streetlights on Etherton Road. There's no curbs. There's no sidewalks until you get north of Nier Acres Road, and now you're into Main Street crossing. That's when the sidewalk starts. So there's no sidewalks, and I don't see where there's any way you could ever widen the road or anything else because of the older homes that are on both sides. I don't see that happening. The other thing that people may not realize is there are no streetlights on that stretch of Etherton Road from Old Manchester all the way up through to Main Street crossing. No streetlights whatsoever. Etherton Road is a bike path and pedestrian path, and not a whole lot more. There's not much you can do with it. It's very narrow, and it has 2 blind spots on it. If you ever drive down Etherton Road, look for those 2 blind spots. They're glaring. They jump out at you. You don't know if there's a car coming up as you move out of the way of somebody on the right-hand side of the road when you're driving down. You could go head on. And I'm surprised that hasn't happened before now. Moving on, the next thing is water pressures.
1 minute.
Okay. Water pressures. I live in Canterbury. And our water pressures, since we moved in like 7 years ago, the water pressures have decreased in our home. I thought it was something to do with our home, but I have fellow neighbors throughout the neighborhood that are losing water pressure. And then it went lower when Main Street Crossing was finished. And I understand Main Street Crossing has issues with water pressure. Infrastructure before construction. It has to go in that order, or things are going to be a mess. Rentals, That was a big issue. Rentals weren't something that was desired. HOA, I heard the term HOA bandied about and so forth. HOA, Homeowners Association. There are not going to be any homeowners in latitude 38. It's all going to be renters.
Time.
Thank
Is
you
that
for your time.
Joe?
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Ms. Link.
I'm Lyn Link and I live on Indian Ridge, and I'm speaking in opposition to the Crestview development. At prior planning and zoning hearings in September and October, I spoke on the property and the area's past history and entered into the minutes supported documentation on the health risks of industrial soil contaminants from lead, arsenic, pesticides, lead-fueled vehicles, emission from brick and lime kilns, which operated in Wildwood from the 1800s to the mid-1900s with no safety emission standards, emitting nickel, arsenic, lead, cadmium, dioxins, asbestos, and fire bricks, and even risk of asbestos fibers, which can stay airborne and travel over a mile from the demolition of the existing homes, which were all built at a time when asbestos was used in bricks, flooring, roofing, caulking, insulation, and adhesives. On an elevated parcel, this has the potential to pollute and risk the health of not only nearby residents, but also people and wildlife at lower elevations downstream. Unresolved water runoff issues on this parcel have been previously brought up by even the commission. Centaur Lime's history appears in the new Celebrate Wildwood book, and a photo of Glencoe Lime citing it as the area's largest manufacturer of lime and cement appears on Wildwood's own Facebook page. The 1909 Western Merrimack Township plat map of Wildwood shows Winkle terracotta clay and hydraulic press brick factories on Manchester Road to the west of the Crestview property. When questioned by the commission about the past history of potential toxins, the attorney for TB actually denied this history was true. Years ago, I appeared at St. Louis County Planning and Zoning and met dozens of Oakville residents, including 4 residents who were adjacent property owners who had developed cancer, who were concerned about exposure to toxins with high-density housing proposed on a former nursery site. McBride Barra, one of the largest donors to Steve Stenger's campaign, was allowed to build high-density subdivision Gray Oaks on it. Some Rockwood schools have recently been found to have drinking water with lead levels many times higher than accepted. Most experts agree there's no safe lead level exposure, especially in children. Amwater.com reports that 80% of their surface water comes from the Missouri River, which along with Merrimack is at downstream elevation from this property. My opinion is not that the property should not be developed. The elevation water runoff with its known history of high probability and soil toxin causing an increased health risk to nearby residents and humans and wildlife downstream clearly mandates that a higher level of caution is required to do this. Any developer of this property should care enough to have already done preliminary testing. As this has not been done, it is the commission's job to require this testing to protect residents from those who would put profits above our safety.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Ms. Hinson, and following that will be Ms. Brian.
Right. Hi, everyone. Well, if you are a FAR greenhouse neighbor, please raise your hand.
Name and address, please.
Tracy Hinson, and I'm a Questover Canyon neighbor. My address I'll omit for right now, but it's on the card. All right. So raise your hand again. All right. Planning Commission meeting. This is your neighbors. This is who we're talking about here. We have to be very careful about the type of businesses we are inviting into people's backyards. It's a non-urban residential district, not a commercial, not an industrial district. Defined by Merriam-Webster, synonyms for residential are familial and home-like. In the current Wildwood non-urban residential district code, uses for this kind of land include churches, libraries, and parks, all uses that benefit the people of Wildwood. That same code includes nurseries like FAR. Look what we got when we first moved in. It says, "Welcome to the neighborhood" for our new neighbors. Nothing about a research and development greenhouse is neighborly or residential. It's corporate and commercial. The entire reason we are even here tonight is because a corporation has moved into Wildwood and is petitioning to change our existing regulations. A corporation that to the St. Louis Business Journal describes what they aspire to do as to become the Amazon of agriculture. The Amazon of agriculture. That sure doesn't sound residential to me. It sounds like a truck yard with shipping and receiving operations, something much better suited for Wildwood's already zoned industrial or commercial areas. By pushing through an ordinance that would allow non-urban residential districts to harbor companies like this, we would effectively dissolve a neighborly community Wildwood envisioned. Please consider this ordinance and what type of corporation they invite into our wonderful Wildwood neighborhoods. Research and development is a far cry from your family-owned since 1950
One,
Greenhouse Community Garden Center. Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Ms. Brian, followed by Gina OBrien.
I'm sorry, I live on Etherton Road,
And your name?
Sandra Brian. The proposal of the 57 rental units on a tiny 6.5 acre rural lot is not a sane idea. Etherton Road already has problems with rain and runoff. This will definitely cause more erosion and foundation issues for homeowners along Etherton. This month, when the permit goes through, I'm having Chesterfield Landscape do $16,000 worth of water damage repair to my property. This work is needed to fix rain runoff from Etherton Road. If the housing project goes through, I'm sure my efforts will be voided out. The petition of 2,500 against this project speaks volumes. From my understanding of this situation, minds have already been made up that the project will happen. I implore those who think this is a good idea to reconsider. If you live near this bad idea, I'm sure you would be opposed to it too. There is an adage going around. Don't know if you've heard it. It is, you will own nothing and be happy. It is becoming a reality in America. And if you want to be a part of that legacy, just know that karma is real. And it may not come back to you as an encroachment near your home, but it is certain it will come back to you tenfold. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Gina OBrien, followed by Ms. Hudson.
Good evening. My name is Gina OBrien. My address is 2528 Fawcett Drive. I live in Main Street Crossing. I'm here tonight to ask for the TB Realty N38 proposal for rental apartments on Etherton Road be denied. Members of our community have spoken against this development for months at council meetings. Reasons are traffic, safety, schools, and infrastructure. I won't need 3 minutes to rehash what citizens have already addressed as to why this is a bad idea for Wildwood. You have heard the reasons numerous times. I'm asking you to listen to our concerns and protect our city. I don't believe any of you would want this type of development near your residences, the same as we don't want it near ours. Etherton Road is already stretched to the limit. The new proposal has a foolish entrance from this road. The entrance was denied by McBride, but still on the table here. What makes this different? Also, if you're looking at the rendering of these rentals, they have none of the charm of the existing nearby neighborhoods. The units facing Main Street would be an eyesore to the town center. Do you want that for our city? I'm also curious as to why McBride pulled out. Is it something to do with the soil? Something that we spoke about earlier this evening? The vote was already taken. The proposal was denied, 6-3 vote. Now it's back on the table for another vote. That's also very curious to me. Please remember, when your citizens ask you not to develop, please vote with the citizens and not the developer. Thank you for your time. And I also agree with the previous speakers who spoke to address this situation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Ms. Hudson, followed by Mr. Hudson.
I'm Diane Hudson, 18068 Babbler Woods Road. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. It's been a few years since last we saw each other. Some of you are new and maybe have not heard about this situation that we've been in. Something started to be built many years ago. We noticed it. We let Wildwood know about it. We were quite surprised. It was a 500-foot waterfall that uses an 8 million gallon lake, which is 3.4 acres, to run the waterfall. The pumps come up, take the water, drop it down, aerosolize the water from the lake. Mr. Bunich had mentioned in his report that is out tonight that no pathogens appeared to be too problematic. So during the 2019 testing that went on of Babbler Farms LLC lake water, only surface water was allowed to be taken by the petitioner for analysis. The city had planned on doing, as many of you know, go in and do many, many samples, do them at depth. He didn't allow that. He stopped it the night before, and that's on the ARDL report. If you go back and research it, that one sample showed the presence of a known pathogen, Pseudomonas ponchomobilius. As Mr. Vunich repeated, an incorrect opinion that there's no problem with this. When I shared this statement with Dr. Michael Burns, the owner of Benchmark Environmental Laboratories, who provided the testing for the lake water sample, he told us that this was not true. He said that not only is this a dangerous pathogen, that it can cause illness and make people become sick, and it can be aerosolized and travel through the air. The Wildwood Plumbing Code is in place to protect the health and safety. The petitioner needs to complete the plumbing permit as required by law. This has gone on for 3 years. And it started and stopped. And when the county said to him, you have to put in tanks to treat anything that's in that lake, he said no. And that's why we're here tonight. And that needs to be stopped. You need to say no on this. You need to vote no on this. Thank you, Mr. Vunich. The Wildwood Plumbing Code is in place to protect public health. The petitioner needs to complete the plumbing permits as required by law and as approved by this body and the city council. So it shouldn't be stopped and changed and reworked and manipulated. And I'm going to provide these copies. I have here also, I don't know if I had the ability to do any overheads tonight, Travis. Oh, okay. But this is Dr. Burns' opinion. He says, in our opinion, the identification of the ID identification performed on the sample from the lake shows the Pseudomonas is present, which is listed in the CDC guide for pathogenic aerobic and anaerobic bacteria. This bacterium can be aerosolized by going over a waterfall, sprayed by a hose, or in a shower head. Why are we here tonight? We shouldn't be. He should be having to do his job.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Hudson, followed by Alan Rohrig.
David Hudson, Babbler Woods Road. I thank the Planning and Zoning Commission for allowing me to comment tonight on PZ 1517, which is on the agenda. About 95% of the water in the petitioner's lake has flowed across the ground of over 200 acres surrounding horse pasture, forest, Babbler State Park, residences, septic fields, and streets. The stormwater runoff is not clean or safe. Wildwood's Plumbing Code recognizes the risks for reuse of such stormwater runoff and applies specific treatment conditions. The waterfall permit application submitted by St. Louis Public Works in June 2022 contains dated documents that show that substantial changes to the waterfall plumbing system were made as late as February 2022. It is therefore indisputable that Wildwood's and St. Louis County's current 2015 Uniform Plumbing Code applies. The petitioner is requesting that satisfaction of the plumbing code requirements be removed from the site development plan. Wildwood's Plumbing Code exists to protect public health and safety. removal of the plumbing code and not abiding by its safety requirements presents a known health risk. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Alan Rohrig. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. And then Mr. Menas is following that speaker.
Thank you, board, for hearing me out. I'm here to
Name and
speak-
address, please.
Oh, Alan Rohrig, Babbler Woods Road as well, 18050. I'm speaking on the same issue that the Hudsons are talking about. I'm a trustee in the neighborhood. My home is 857 feet as a crow flies from the water feature. I do hear it. It's white noise. It's not necessarily an issue. Nobody really has an issue with the water feature being there. Nobody's saying it needs to be removed. Our issue, or at least what I would look at as an issue, is that there's a process in my business. We have an architecture firm. We design, we submit the drawings to Wildwood. They come back with comments. We pick up the comments. They approve it, goes to St. Louis County. They give us comments. They approve, we address the comments. It gets approved, a permit is issued, and then construction is begun. Obviously, that didn't occur in this water feature. And I do agree that the health and safety requirement that the plumbing codes do bring about on this feature should be abided by. And so we're basically here saying that that there should be testing to ensure that the waterfall does not pose a risk to the immediate neighbors or to the people that live there themselves. And we just ask that proper permitting be followed on this feature. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Mr. Menas, excuse me, and then followed by Ms. Donaldson.
Thank you, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Bob Menas, 121 West Adams Avenue, Kirkwood, Missouri, 63122. I'm here on behalf of David and Diane Hudson to provide you with comments on PZ 1517 and the request by Babbler Farms LLC to remove conditions in its site development plan that require it to obtain plumbing permits prior to operating its waterfall. I submitted to you guys last week written comments and documents that fully set forth the reasons why you should not alter the site development plan for this conditional use permit. There is simply no excuse for why the conditional use permit or the site development plan have not been complied with other than refusal by the petitioner. I did not have the luxury of reviewing Mr. Vunich's report prior to submitting my comments. My comments in part were based on statements that Mr. Vunich has made in the past regarding the need to maintain the requirement in the site development plan to have plumbing permits in place to protect public health, safety, welfare before Babbler Farms can operate its waterfall. I'm not sure why the staff's position has changed in this regard. St. Louis County's position hasn't changed. Babbler Farms needs the plumbing permits for the waterfall. They have issued a stop work order. Certainly, non-compliance with zoning and plumbing permitting requirements should not be rewarded by eliminating them. But that seems to be what's going on here. Mr. Vunich states that you should eliminate the requirements in the SDP so that the zoning process can be completed to, quote, allow for clearer direction in the future relative to compliance of this conditional use. Holding the process of this nature in limbo does not benefit it nor the petitioner and surrounding property owners that depend on this permit for clarity in reviews, determinations, and actions. The only party that has held this process in limbo is the petitioner, Babbler Farms. Because it won't comply, it simply refuses to do what is required to meet the terms of its permit and to ensure public health is protected. Removing the conditions to have plumbing permits in place before the waterfall can operate will not provide clarity to the surrounding property owners. In fact, it will do just the opposite. It will give Babbler Farms the incentive to operate its waterfall in a gray area. Nothing could be more clear than you can't run it unless you have the right permits. This is standard practice in Wildwood. Last time I checked, this is Wildwood, not the Wild West. But if petitioner gets its way, we might as well throw away the rule of law and 6 years of administrative decision-making process. We urge P&Z to deny the request before it tonight regarding PZ 1517. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Ms. Donaldson. Following that will be Ms. Vedvig.
Hello. I'm Debbie Donaldson. I reside, I reside at 17016 Canberry Lane. I am a newly elected board member for Canberry, but to be clear, I am not speaking on behalf of the Canberry subdivision. One of the most often stated reasons for adding additional homes to the area bordering town center is that more rooftops will make town center flourish. I work in the housing industry, and I question the logic of this. First, town center is filled with service businesses, such as 2 Edward Jones locations, 2 personal trainers, 1 incoming soon mode, a yoga studio, a math tutoring storefront, and many similar non-sales tax generating businesses. There is also a business which I understand has to do with Medicare billing, and it fills up a very large space. The boutique style businesses are Milk and Honey, Heels, Magnolia Soap, and Treats Unleashed. Our restaurants, El Maguey is bustling, Sunny Street Cafe with limited hours, St. Louis Bread Co., which sometimes is bustling and at other times not so much, Benedetto's, I'm not certain, Starbucks, well, Starbucks is Starbucks, Vittoria, which is not really part of town center, it closed, not because of problems with business so much, but the owner created a patent and he decided to pursue it because it was a much more lucrative business. On to the appearance of town center. On behalf of my business and in support of the city, I decorated a tree for the Wildwood Tree Lighting Festival that occurred on Saturday. It was a very nice event. In fact, it was really quite hallmarky. If you weren't there, it was very cool. Thank you, City of Wildwood, for doing that. However, as I look around town center, there's not a spirit of holiday joy. Few lights, wreaths, greenery, nothing really drawing people to come to town center. I suggested stringing lights across Main Street to add that kind of a feeling. I was told it's too expensive. Yet we have
One minute.
$16 million budget surplus. Town center should not be just a place. It should also be a feeling. So I suggest that we allow businesses to have an easier time coming to Wildwood, that we allow businesses to have signage, that we allow businesses to set up shop quicker. I know CNC Butcher Shop went to Ellisville because it was going to take them about a year to open here. I have tried, along with another resident of Wildwood, to start a group that would represent local businesses. We cannot get okay to use the meeting room in January without having to pay a $50 fee. We can't get a call back. It's frustrating. If you want town center to thrive, let businesses come in that will serve the local businesses, and maybe consider focusing on our trails, our bicyclists, maybe even create a recreation area where you're wanting to build homes.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Ms. Vedvig. The following speaker will be Ms. Parsons.
Hello. Hi, Chair Beatty. Don't start my time until I give my name, okay?
All right.
All right, because I didn't know you were only 3 minutes. Used to be 5, so I'm trying to go as fast as I can, but thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here on speaking on, I think it's 1517 Roberts.
Now.
Oh, yeah. Jean Vedvig, 16709 Clayton Road, Wildwood, Missouri, Ward 4.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. All right. So I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the citizens of the city of Wildwood. When we incorporated, you all know we have a lot of rules and regulations, as every government does. Without rules and regulations, no reason for government, right? So part of our regulations is a conditional use permit. And a conditional use permit is a privilege. And only you, the planning and zoning commissioners, can grant it. Thank you. Certain variances are granted and compliance with the conditions are set by the permit. Right now, you have a person who is not doing their part of the conditional use permit. Now, this is a snapshot of a few conditional use permits that were issued from like 97 to 2016, from when I was previously involved with the council, the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if you can see how many permits were on here, in order to get these permits approved, all these people had to comply with the conditions. They didn't get conditions removed because they didn't want to meet the conditions. So this particular matter that's before you, if a homeowner goes in and does remodeling work, they have to meet the Wildwood codes. They have to go to the county and get plumbing permits to have work done. Everyone has to do that in order to be in sync with a good zoning commission and to be with good laws. This 1 minute stuff is really troublesome, okay? So the city currently contracts with the county. And if the gentleman hasn't complied with the plumbing permit, then he should not get any variance or have that removed from his conditional use permit. It just is common sense. You know, this petitioner is working overtime to not comply. In 2016, Laura Taylor came before the Planning and Zoning Commission to get a large water feature approved. And she had to go through all the hoops, and she did it, and she got approved. So your decision, I'm trying to just pick this out, you know, your decision is going to impact the future of this community, because if you don't make him comply, then why should these people comply? Or why should the people on the agenda tonight comply? I guess I'll have to come back next week. Oh, wait, that's right. You only meet once a month. I'll come back.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chair Beatty.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Ms. Parsons. The following speaker will be Mr. Gunther.
Hello, my name is Julie Parsons and I live at 2425 Etherton Road in Wildwood, and I'm speaking in opposition to the Latitude 38 project. Density, 57 units on 6.5 acres is too dense. In the Planning and Zoning Commission letter of recommendation, it states that the proposed density of this project remains at the upper reaches of the allowable range for properties classified as neighborhood general. Further, it goes on that smaller lot sizes, minimum building and structure setback distances, and 2 stories of height for certain units all lend to a massing not yet found in the city town center area. The units will offer limited access to private, passive green space areas, regardless of the trailhead area that's set aside on Crestview and Etherton. When the commission voted this project down, your instincts were right. Let's do it again. In the plan, it says that half of the 70-foot road is to be dedicated to the city. Where's the other half of the road coming from? We can't move this project forward until the issue of the road is settled. In the tree protection plan, it lists 46 trees. 22 are marked as grand trees. They are all marked on the plan that they will be removed. Again, we enjoy our trees and we love our green space. We don't need additional rentals. 189 rental units have been approved to be built next to the movie theater. Please vote no in moving this plan forward. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Gunther. The following speaker will be Mr. Cummer.
John Gunther, 18041 Melrose Road. Good evening. I'm here tonight regarding the possible dissolution of the City of Wildwood's Architectural Review Board. I am John Gunther, a resident of this area since 1966, an architect and a fellow in the American Institute of Architects for notable contributions in design, a member of the founders of the City of Wildwood, the first Planning and Zoning Commission, and founding member of the Architectural Review Board, having served as chair, vice chair, or secretary. I served the City of Wildwood continuously for the first 19 years and then some in various capacities. I respectfully ask that the Architectural Review Board remain intact and of service to our city, its citizens, and the built and natural environment. From its inception, the Architectural Review Board and Planning and Zoning Commission have worked together effectively and collaboratively with very positive, high-quality results. While the results speak for themselves, there's a long way to go with the future developments within the City of Wildwood and the town center. And while the patterns, design, character, style, massing, scale, and location have been established in the town center, please know that each new project brings with it its own unique requirements, site, and considerations. The ARB is uniquely positioned to respond to each new proposed development based upon the city's requirements and the architect's professional experience. I can assure you that many ARB reviews led to better designs, simplified, cost-effective, and resulting in more beautiful built environment with tremendous value to the city. The ARB's work goes well beyond checking the boxes of the list of requirements. Take B&B Theaters as an example. The owner liked the Art Deco style, but didn't know if that was allowed. We encouraged him to pursue this design and do it well. Our reviews helped to refine it. In citing the building, I suggested it be moved slightly east so that the entry tower would be on the center line of Fountain Place. This is good design, good urban planning, and grows out of ARB efforts and discussions. The issue of finding volunteers.
1 minute.
The issue of finding volunteers to serve on the ARB with vacancies and term limits noted has been cited as a reason to dissolve the board. As the name states, the Architectural Review Board should be composed of architects who bring their professional experience and knowledge to serve our city, yielding quality and value, protecting what is in place, and allowing for proper future growth. In checking with the AIA St. Louis chapter, please be advised that there are 14 architects within the City of Wildwood. Please do not dissolve the Architectural Review Board. We have accomplished so much to date, but there is so much more to do. Stay the course. Don't make a hasty decision. This is no time to abandon a well-established framework for quality in our built environment, which our citizens count on. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Cummer. Following speaker will be David Knoll.
My name's Tim Cummer. I live at 2460 Atherton Road. I've been at all of these meetings, and it seems like we just keep rehashing the same thing. The prior meeting, it was voted 6-3. You guys said no, it's not happening. Had another meeting that was not, there was no mailers on it, so there was nobody here to oppose except for myself. It's kind of sad. But tonight I'm going to just kind of go over some things that have kind of been lost in the shuffle over all the meetings. So first off, Tony's been renting these 3 properties for several years. His last renter, which was right next to me, had the police called on her 19 times in 9 months. 19 times in 9 months. Okay, I've lived on the street for 25 years. The police haven't been there 19 times in 25 years. So this is the kind of problem you have with renters. Okay, this person would be up all hours in the night. The kids would throw plates off of the roof at 2 o'clock in the morning, making TikTok videos. They would leave their trash in front of their home so raccoons could get in it. Another thing that I haven't seen in 25 years. This person also had multiple trailers in the driveway that were not plated correctly. I called Tony because he was a neighbor. I've known Tony for probably 15, 20 years. A lot of people on that street are very private. Just because we're neighbors doesn't mean we necessarily talk to each other. When I called Tony, he said he'd look into it. Well, he didn't look into it. So I called him back. He said, well, Tim, I'm sorry, but that's the city's problem. Okay, so just imagine that. That's the city's problem. So now you're going to have 57 problems. Okay?
1 minute.
Secondly, there should be no on-street parking. Etherton is such a small road. I can't even believe that it was ever approved for Main Street. It's just a debacle. People park the wrong way, the wrong direction, lots of speeding cars. There's no way I can go through everything I can do, but I'm going to talk about erosion because that's what's going to affect me and my neighbors the most. So Tony said he's addressed all these things. He hasn't addressed any of them. So he moved his property 5 feet off my property. Okay, that's great. I vent my gutters 5 feet away from my house. So when those neighbors vent their gutters, they're going to vent them right into my property. So I got more erosion. And I can already tell you from dealing with Tony, he isn't going to look out for me. He's not looking out for the city. He's looking out for himself. He wants to fill his pockets with money. That's why he wants them to be rentals. And I canvassed the area, all of Main Street, all of Canterbury, and I found no one that wanted this. No one. This will cause huge problems to my property.
Time. Thank you for your comments.
And just so you know, when we have these big meetings, you should have more than 3 minutes.
Well, I appreciate your comments, but look how many people are
Exactly.
here.
That's why we're all here. This is just so important to us. And it's super hard to find all your all's email or how to fill your email box full.
Ready?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Knoll, followed by Mr. Danganen.
Hello, my name is David Knoll. I live at 2709 Questover Canyon. My comments are going to be specific to the planning and zoning 18-23 having to do with agricultural research. At the last meeting, this was combined with a application by the Solus Corporation for the power greenhouse development. There was considerable discussion on that, those two items, and it was determined at the time that there were 5 critical items on the Solus application that needed further investigation. Whether or not they were going to produce marijuana there, water contaminations for the runoff or the wells, the lighting of the greenhouses at night can be very invasive. If you look at the lighting that's up at the Chesterfield Bayer facility, traffic situations and noise. And we were led to believe that these items would all be addressed before the current item on the 18-23 would be investigated. So the Solus got moved back, and yet this is still on the agenda. So I would ask that this resolution on 18-23 get postponed until these other 5 items are resolved from the Solus consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Mr. Danganen, followed by Mr. Roberts.
Good evening, commission members. My name is Charles Danganen. I live at 2501 Clare Lane. And I just wanted to start off with the survey that the Master Plan Committee did back in 2015, where 232 residents responded to that survey. The question on the survey was, how would you rate the city of Wildwood as a place to live? And 98% of the individuals that responded to that survey responded favorably. And I just wanted to echo those comments. I've been living in Wildwood since 2017 and have enjoyed the neighbors, the neighborhood, and all the services, amenities that the community provides. I do have a concern with the development of rental property in the area, and I just wanted to summarize basically 3 articles that discuss the impact, the negative impact of having rental property in the neighborhood. And so the first one was from the Indianapolis Business Journal. And this appeared July 16th of 2021. And this occurred during the time when you had national investment firms going into neighborhoods and buying up single family homes. And so as a result of what was going on, there were over 200 homeowner association groups that have modified their subdivision covenants to go ahead and restrict the rental homes or the purchase of rental homes in the community. And so there were basically two concerns that homeowners had. The first was crime, and I don't think I need to say anything more about crime. I think that was just discussed. But the second are just the property values. I think the property values are negatively impacted by the rental homes. There was an article in the Washington Post, and this appeared in October of 2015. And one of the authors was a real estate attorney, Sam Tompkin. And I'm going to read directly what he said. He said, if you have too many rental properties in a neighborhood of single family homes, it can cause property values to decline. And the reason for that is that tenants don't maintain the homes to the level that people or owner occupied individuals maintain their homes. And so I thought that was important. I'm going to finish with this last article. This was in realtor.com, March 28th of 2016. And just to summarize, it's things that drag down the value of your home. And so just as a number to remember, the price drop for homes with a high renter concentration was 13.8%. And so I consider my home as an investment. I expect that to increase in value, not decline. And so therefore, I'm opposed to having rental homes, the development of rental property in the area. I would like to see as a compromise owner-occupied homes. So that way they're invested in the community and also they're committed to the city of Wildwood. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Mr. Roberts, followed by Ms. Gillespie.
Good evening. My name is Tom Roberts. I reside at 500 Lori Lane. I came here this evening not planning on speaking at all, but I just could not sit back there and listen to the false accusations that were made by others, hired guns, people that have no dog in the fight. They have claimed that this is on 200 plus acres, which is 100% incorrect. They have said that it's 8 million gallons of water. Incorrect. It's 2 million. When I bought this property and started the construction, we did everything by the book. We received an occupancy permit with this waterfall in place. It's been there. You can look that up. It's a fact. After we moved in, we received a letter from City of Wildwood stating about getting this conditional use permit. We did collectively, the City of Wildwood and myself did numerous studies. We did 4 sound studies. Every one of them came below the limits. Limits are 55 decibels. They came in at 50. We did water quality studies. We did 2 of those. Came in below limits. We were going to have to do a smell study, but because of the cost, the City of Wildwood said they weren't going to do it. Everything that we did was below the limits. The light studies were done. Those were below the limits. So for them to say that they're being affected by this is totally incorrect. They are not on the property. Their street doesn't go down there. They are about 600 feet away with heavy vegetation in between the waterfall and them. They have stated that it's a 500-foot waterfall. That is correct. The horizontal waterfall with an average drop of 1 foot. So the waterfall goes 500 feet in cascades. That's why there is no sound and no smell. Hudson's have stated that they can get ALS disease from this. This was in a prior P&Z meeting. I've found no evidence of that anywhere. Some of the statements they've made are just outright incorrect. And I want to bring those to your attention to let you know that there's 2 sides to every story. That is not correct. he said they want a storage tank for the lake. So you
One
have
minute.
you would have a storage, a lake for a lake. This is a natural occurring lake that's been there for well over 50 years. You can see it on Google Maps. It's a closed system. Water is pumped up the hill, goes down the waterfall and back to the system. So there is affecting absolutely nobody. It's just beyond belief that this thing's been going on for over 4+ years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Ms. Gillespie, followed by Ms. Stackle.
Right, Megan Gillespie. I live at 17002 Main Street. And here we are again. I'm here to oppose the Crestview development. Many people before me have spoken. I feel like I'm in an episode in the movie Groundhog's Day. You've heard all of this. We don't want this. Nobody here wants this. That's been abundantly clear. We've got a petition signed. We've had a million different examples. The guy before was talking about crime. I'm one of the people that called the cops over there. There was a pack of kids out around 4th of July shooting fireworks at each other. What's safe about that? So this is the kind of stuff that's going on there. And another person mentioned the trees. And I think that's something that this group should be applauded for having said that. But what I haven't seen, and maybe it's on the new plan, I didn't think I would be back here, so I haven't looked at the latest one. But so there's 22 trees that are marked as grand trees. What are they going to do with them? Have they put that on the plan? Because it sure seems like they're hoping you all just aren't going to notice. Are we going to enforce that? Because if we're going to enforce it, then I think their plan's going to look real different. And it's not going to be the density that it's at now, because I don't see how it can be. Would just like to ask you once again to please vote this down, and I hope it'll be the last time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, my apologies, Ms. Stackle didn't wish to speak, but she did provide written comments.
Okay.
So the next speaker is Ms. Tierney, followed by Mr. Salvatore.
Hi, I'm Alise Tierney. I live over at 2550 Calar Lane. Thank you for paying attention to what I have to say. Don't start the time just yet. Did I tell you it was Wildwood? Been here 25 years. I'm tired. I'm tired. I had to get up for a CT scan this morning at 4:30, and I really wanted to come to this meeting so bad. And that's kind of, even though that guy's not here because he's sick, I really wish he would be, because he needed to hear some of this stuff. And unless you're recording it for him, and I hope you are, it's important. You know, I'm Polish, so I'm always optimistic, but I'm an RN, so it makes me skeptical about everything. And I live next to a renter in my old neighborhood that I was there for 25 years. And he sucked because he moved to another country, the renter who was renting the house. And the people who had to live there lived in a deteriorating house that took down the neighborhood homes around them. If I'm not quite eloquent, please just forgive me, but you kind of get my gist. Renters suck. They don't have an investment. They're there for a period of time, and then they're going to leave. People who own their home not only care about their home, but in their neighborhood, they care about their neighbors. They stand up. Somebody gets struck with a tornado, they show up. Renters, I don't know about them. I know what people do in my old neighborhood. They stood behind each other. And that was important. And my husband told me, don't be emotional. I'm really not. I'm just the tired hormonal person right now. But living next to that person made me realize that all of us are at risk. And we care. That's why we're here. I came even though I'm exhausted and hormonal. I really find this annoying that I have to turn a decision over, because if this goes bad, and there are a lot of unknowns about it, things like, well, Tony's here for now, and we heard about that guy who I wanted to give you a bunch of my time. Really did. Well done. It's unknown what he's going to do. Is he going to stay here? What happens in 15 or 20 years and he's gone? And things go to hell. this is your legacy that you're leaving here, and all of your names will be tied to it. Because if those rental properties go down, and if everything that guy said it would be, and half of these other people, it's going to be a hellhole, and that's going to ruin what you're trying to create. Why destroy it? Just start with homeowners. They're reliable. They show up.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Salvatore. The following speaker will be Mr. Levenson.
Good evening. My name is Tony Salvatore, 2701 Autumn Run Court. Well, by the way, if anybody wants to see where the police are really going, go to Baldwin. Reese Road, it's one little area, only like 2 or 3 roads. 80% of the police calls go there. Why? They're all rental units. End of discussion there. But I want to go on with the waterfall issue with Mr. Roberts. I have nothing against Mr. Roberts or anybody else, but follow the procedures. Don't go ahead, take shortcuts. If the county gave him a stop work order, so should we, until things get resolved. This is a quality of life issue. You know, I don't care how much Mr. Roberts gives Mr. Boland for his campaigns. He's given him thousands of dollars. I don't care if he gives him $1 million. What? The Hudson's voice is worth every penny too. They have equal rights. In fact, quality of life is the preeminent right. And all of you up here, you came here with preconceived notions. Mr. Boland runs you all. It's very true by what I've seen in all the other, admin public works committees. It's like you guys all are like puppets, and you really are. Everybody came in here tonight with a preconceived notion that you're going to make a change. You're not. You want to make a change? Give a contribution to Mr. Boland. You may get changed that way. Okay. Also, if you really want to know what's going on in Wildwood, go to concernedcitizensofwildwood.com. I'm the treasurer. It's a committee registered in the state of Missouri. And all I can say is
1 minute.
This city has gone down to shitter more ways than one since Mr. Boland has taken over. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Levenson, followed by Ms. Bush.
Good evening. William Levenson, President of Benton Home Builders, 11605 Stutt Avenue, Suite 102, Creve Coeur, Missouri, 63141. Just want to summarize a few things. Town Center Update Committee spent 2 years analyzing and recommending land uses in the city. Planning and Zoning and City Council approved those updates to the comprehensive plan. We designed our project to the comprehensive plan when we first proposed 65 residential units and 2 commercial spaces. Since then, we have reduced our project to 57 units total. We are now at the absolute minimum that makes the project feasible. We've had multiple meetings with the planning department, and we've addressed all their concerns. We put detached units along Etherton so they would match the homes across to the west. We added a fence and other screening to keep lights from shining onto neighboring properties. We took their suggestions regarding how it would look from Main Street. We reduced some 6-unit buildings to 5-unit buildings and reconfigured the site and the entrance. We added public space. We added a bike trailhead, a bike path. And we revised our plan to make 40% of our property length along Main Street open space. We've heard from the community and other zonings that 2-car garages are important. We have 2-car garages in every unit. We have 2 spaces in the driveway. We have additional off-street parking. We have more parking spaces than are required by code because we think it's a good idea and will result in a good project. We are long-term owners. We have multiple projects, and anybody that has gone to see our project has spoken in favor of them. We've had a number of people that we've invited to see the project that have chosen not to and spoke against the project. That's their prerogative. We have approval from the fire district. We meet or exceed all Wildwood and MSD stormwater regulations. We are charged with, and we will control all stormwater from our site. Stormwater from our our site goes into our stormwater facilities and leaves the site at the same rate that it did prior to our development. These are all Wildwood and MSD requirements to which we've designed our project. We are giving the city 35 feet along the length of our property for the construction of Main Street. There are a lot of questions regarding the HOA. I think it can be simplified.
1 minute.
To record a plat with individual lots and individual addresses, there has to be an HOA to hold title to the common ground and control the stormwater. This is a city requirement. It is to the benefit of the city to have one point of contact, an easy path to get a hold of us if they want to discuss anything. In summary, we meet the direction provided by the comprehensive plan, and we have a positive recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Department. Previous speakers spoke about rules and regulations. Comprehensive plan is the city's vision for the future. I understand that change can be unsettling, but change can also be positive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Ms. Bush, followed by Mr. Gay.
My name is Krista Bush, and I live at 2508 Calare Lane in Canberra. My comments are regarding the Latitude N38 development and really development of the property or the land east of Etherton in general. My husband Craig and I have lived in Wildwood since 1998. We raised our children here and have stayed really for the park and trail system, as well as the careful development of the area. We are not opposed to development east of Etherton and along Crestview Drive, but we are opposed to development that is too dense and does not mesh with the surrounding community. During the McBride meetings, we spoke to this and were supportive of the final McBride proposal after the changes they made. Our understanding is that McBride withdrew their proposal due to the conflicts with Wildwood over road completion. Now, the Latitude proposal is front and center. Craig and I drove to St. Peter's several months ago to see a similar Latitude development off Schoolhouse Road. The homes have a plain appearance. The garages are the prominent feature, with poorly visualized front entrances set back from the garages. The homes don't have the finishes and charm present in Canberra, Main Street, Brightleaf, and several of the older lovely homes along Etherton Road. We are also concerned that this will be a rental community and have a property management structure where residents don't have controlling interest. We think this rental and property management structure will lead to decline of the property over time and negatively impact surrounding property values. Road infrastructure has been discussed in many previous meetings as well as this evening. Craig and I continue to have questions about how Etherton can be widened enough to support the increase in vehicle traffic while still allowing pedestrians to walk safely. Also, we have heard some discussion about completing the remainder of Main Street as a 2-lane without the boulevard to just get the road through. We feel that if Main Street does go through, the boulevard should be continued all the way to provide a cohesive appearance. Craig and I have heard multiple times how important additional roofs and completing Main Street are to the success of Town Center. We feel there are multiple other issues impacting Town Center's success, and developing the property east of Etherton will only help if done well. P&Z has listened carefully to resident concerns throughout this process. Thank you for doing so again this evening before making your recommendations regarding the Latitude proposal.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Mr. Gay. Mr. Gay.
Good evening. My name is Don Gay. I live at 2409 Larkson Drive in the Canberra subdivision. It seems like to me that all through this process, the things that keep appearing are density, rentals, and no individual management of the properties, because there can't be an HOA if there are no homeowners. seems like to me that since the last plan that came up, there was a reduction of 58 from 58 units to 57. That doesn't seem like much of a reduction in density to me. Latitude in 38 is 100% rentals. And when we were discussing the McBride plan several weeks ago, we required that the McBride project have no more than 25% rentals. And now we're talking about 100% rentals and 57 units. I'm a retired military person, 25 years. And as you might gather, I've lived in different parts of the country, and I've seen this go on in many, many places. I've seen the face and quality of a lot of fine neighborhoods be reduced by adjacent rental properties. And I beg you to not let this happen here. We have some fine neighborhoods adjacent to this project. And I think if it were to go through, we would all regret it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, that's the last of the speaker cards, except for Ms. Vedbig has submitted another speaker card requesting a second time. I believe that is up to the commission if they would like to allow that.
Can I get an opinion from Mr. Young?
The rules of the commission are clear that each speaker gets one time. If she has a comment during any public hearings, that's appropriate, but not during public comment.
All right. Thank you. So, all right, let's see here. So first on the agenda is PZ 8-23. Mr. Vunich.
Mr. Chair, as we have done in the past, we read the title, not the entire advertisement. If there's no objection from the commissioner, Mr. Young will read the two titles and then do the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. PZ 8-23 Latitude N38 TB Realty in Benton Homes 11605 Stutt Avenue Suite 102 St. Louis, Missouri 63141 and PZ 8A-23 Latitude N38 TB Realty in Benton Homes 11605 Stutt Avenue Suite 102 St. Louis, Missouri 63141. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you'll recall from the November meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, there is a request for reconsideration of these two petitions. The Planning and Zoning Commission ultimately granted the reconsideration and held a discussion regarding the merits of the proposal again. At the conclusion of that discussion at the November meeting, there was a request from the Planning and Zoning Commission that the department prepare two reports. First, the letter of recommendation reflecting the action of the Planning and Zoning Commission to deny the tandem request, and then another with a potential approval with the conditions associated with such an action. First on the agenda tonight, per the bylaws of the Planning and Zoning Commission, is the letter of recommendation in draft form. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you know, the letter of recommendation now reflects the action of the Planning and Zoning Commission from its September 2023 meeting, which was to deny the tandem request for the change in zoning and the application of the overlay district to accommodate the proposed project. As part of the draft letter of recommendation, the department has formulated the rationales and reasons that were spoken by the commission members at that September meeting. So tonight, the letter of recommendation in draft form is available for discussion and final action.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any questions or comments from the commission? Or motion? Mayor Boland, did you have something?
No, I just wanted to mention that a motion was another option and might be
in good order. But that's up to the group.
If I could add one more thing, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, there is the information report that follows. If the action on the draft letter of recommendation is to support the previous decision from September, then we will, at the information report stage, request a motion to withdraw the two petitions.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Okay, so my question is, I'm a little confused. So you have this draft letter of recommendation that says it was not recommended. And if we make a motion to accept that, then it's dead.
That's correct, ma'am.
And then you have this other information report that suggests that it could be approved.
That's correct, ma'am.
And what is the difference?
Well, obviously, the letter of recommendation reflects the first action of the Planning and Zoning Commission on the two petitions. And after discussion of a favorable report from the Department of Planning, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-3 not to accept that favorable recommendation and to deny. That action was delayed in October per the request of the petitioner to allow time to address the comments made by the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of that September action. And then in November, the petitioner requested a reconsideration, which was ultimately authorized. During that discussion of the reconsideration of the two petitions, the Planning and Zoning Commission asked that two reports be prepared, one for the original action and one that could consider approval of the project in the form as shown on the attached preliminary development plan. And so the department is managing the direction of the Planning and Zoning Commission with the two reports. Obviously, there's a September action not supporting it. There was a reconsideration action, but that action did not endorse the project. It just, for the most part, allowed further discussion and then direction to prepare a set of conditions that ultimately could be used to accommodate the project.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
So to just sort of cut to the chase, if the commission, if you could just explain, Joe, if the commission wants to deny the project, what motion would be in order? If it wants to approve the project, what motion would be in order?
If the Planning and Zoning wishes to deny the project, the motion now would be to accept the letter of recommendation as drafted and a second, and then a roll call vote. If the commission wants to proceed to the next step, which is the information report, which contains a favorable recommendation with conditions, then the motion here would be to not accept the draft letter of recommendation and vote it down. You're welcome, sir.
Well, if I could just follow up, sorry. So the motion would be, you said the motion would be to not accept the draft letter of recommendation and to vote it down. You mean to vote the motion down?
Yes, not to support the draft letter of recommendation.
But the vote would be in support of the motion, not to support the draft.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
My description may have not been. So just to restate it, if there is an inclination on the commission's part to move to the next step, a vote to accept the letter of recommendation in its current form would be to deny it. And so really, we would not need to discuss the information report because your first action is to deny the two petitions.
So first we have to vote down the old report to bring on the new report.
If that's the inclination of the commission
or we just accept the old report as it stood.
Exactly, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Rubis?
If right where we stand right now, the project has been not recommended. If
Yes.
we do nothing, it's been right. Now, we have a information report that says we would reconsider our not recommending based upon some new information.
I think that's a very good description.
Okay. The people that I've heard from tonight seem pretty staid in what their problems are with this program. Has the petitioner had any meetings with the people that are here? I'm going back to when we had the problem with Ameren. And we had vitriol reaction to Ameren and us denying them, and they came back with some ideas. And what we did is we allowed a committee of the city, the residents, and the petitioner to get together and come up with what would be acceptable. And that process worked through pretty good. They came back, the people were satisfied, the petitioner was satisfied, the city was satisfied. I wonder if we could, because it seems like there's a lot of moving parts here, and I would just like the opportunity not to get rid of development, but I would like a development that at least has some support of the people and the city. And if that can't come about, then maybe we come back to this same point today where we're
All right, this is between us and Mr. Vunich now.
Well, certainly, there's always the option to postpone action on any of the items that are on tonight's agenda. But certainly, as has been mentioned during public comment, and as you can see on the cover letter of the draft letter of recommendation, the initial public hearing was held back in June of this year. So we're about 6 months into the process. Obviously, the department feels that there's been ample time for all parties to express their opinions. And I think we're at the stage where we would like the Planning and Zoning Commission to give an affirmative direction.
Any motions on the floor? Anyone want to make a motion? Commissioner Clayton.
I want to make a motion, but I'm a little confused, and I want to make sure I get this right. If I make a motion to approve the letter of recommendation as drafted, that's essentially a no to the project.
That's correct, sir.
Then that's the motion that I'd like to make.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the original draft letter of recommendation by Commissioner Clayton and a second by Commissioner Broyles. Any discussion on the motion? Councilman Brost?
Yeah, I know I've spoke on it, and if you look back, I voted in favor of it. Listening to a lot of the concerns, I think that the department would manage through, I think down to the one where you've got rental versus ownership. And that's one that I think is an ongoing management issue. I personally don't think if you're a renter that you're necessarily going to be more likely to commit a crime, but that's my opinion, and we all have them. My basis for my support for the project, and whether it would be this project or one similar to it, is that it is substantially compliant with what's been the city's plan for a long time. And then that was further ratified by the town center update. People can have differences of opinion too as to what's going to help Wildwood and the town center. Whether it's the project, just east of the movie theater, or finally getting rid of the dead end in our city. I do believe it'll be a positive, it'll be very positive for our city. It's a very complicated project because we also want to gain as much value on Main Street as possible. I think the combination of this project and McBride would have been great for the city, but that's not happening right now. But I still, it's not a perfect world, but I believe that this is consistent with, I think work that the master plan as well as the update committee did. I think in this room was filled for months and months and months with people talking about what we're talking about tonight. There were conclusions to do what we're talking about tonight. The only thing different is now it's time to do it. And it's like we're rehashing back over, the issues that were rehashed for months and months and finalized by, I think, in excess of 20 people. And so I think this may be the most difficult decision for me since I joined city council, but in my role as a member of city council, whether it's solar panels or this, I feel I need to go in the direction of, the city's charter, the master plan, and the direction that's been put forth really since the city was founded. So I'm going to remain in support of the project, which if I understand that correctly, Mr. Vunich, then that would say I would be a no vote to this.
Yes, to this motion that's on the floor, you would vote no if you wanted to consider the information report.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Broyles?
Sorry. I want to thank the people that spoke this evening because I know it's heartfelt. And I was on the committee for 2 years, almost 2 years or 2 years, many months sitting in this area, thinking about what we need in Wildwood. We lived here for many years before in Wildwood, before it was called Wildwood, because we wanted to move to a area like this before it was called Wildwood, as I said. But I know that at that time, when we made these decisions, we didn't anticipate all the different things that were going to be coming to us in this session tonight. But if we keep this vote forward, I will vote yes, that we will deny this.
Mayor Bowen?
Mr. Vunich, what is the percentage of rentals currently being proposed in the project? It's to.
In this particular instance, the petitioners are requesting 100% or.
Okay. And then relative to our, town center committee and so forth that we've had that codified and put in place, what our plans long-term were. So those plans obviously set forth from a zoning perspective, what could be in terms of businesses in one place, residences in another, and so forth. My question is, did those plans that we've been referring to, that was exhaustively done by a great committee, have any stipulation one way or the other as to rental properties specifically in this area?
No, sir. And again, as was explained by the city attorney at one of the earlier meetings, the zoning ordinance and our land use regulations, along with our land use plans, look at use, not necessarily ownership, and there's a lot of legal reasons for that.
I thought that was the case. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Dessler raised her hand.
Okay, Commissioner Depler.
Thank you. I just wanted to add my 2 cents, I think, about the whole situation. I really appreciate all the efforts that the commission went through, to look at the, town center plan and all that. And I think, though why everybody believes that there should be, or the possibility of increased density of houses in that area, I don't think anybody that was part of that was considering the rental aspect of it. And, I'm agree with Councilman Broyles, but I agree that we should have a higher density in this town center area. I just don't think this is the project that, our community should, get behind. That's just kind of my perspective. I don't think this is what we need in this particular area.
Any other comments? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey?
The motion on the floor is to accept the letter of resignation as drafted, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then yay.
Commissioner Rubis?
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis voted yes. Commissioner Cohn?
Yay.
Commissioner Cohn votes yes. Commissioner Broyles?
No.
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Sorry.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Depler?
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Chair Beatty?
No.
Councilmember Brost?
No.
And Mayor Boland?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, PZ 18-23, Mr. Greenwich.
Mr. Chair, the Department of Planning has prepared for your consideration a draft letter of recommendation regarding an amendment to the NU non-urban resident district relative to an additional conditional use to be added to the current list. As was noted during public comment at the meeting in November, a discussion about this particular item as well as the actual conditional use permit for the former location of Ford Greenhouse were kind of combined. In reviewing the video and the minutes from that meeting, a date certain was not established for the return of this draft letter of recommendation. To follow our policy and practice, we did prepare the letter of recommendation, but would respectfully request a postponement tonight.
All right. Commissioner Helfrey?
Well, I will make a motion to postpone it, but I have a question regarding it after the motion is seconded.
I'll second the motion.
All right.
Well, actually, so a motion to postpone to a time certain to make sure it's not construed as a motion to postpone indefinitely. So to the next meeting, maybe?
On Joe's notes say January 2024.
Or January, okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to postpone by Commissioner Helfrey and second by Mayor Boland.
And again, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the department recognized the linkage between the two, but again, without a date certain, The department did not want to let it lag and then obviously create a problem for the future.
Okay, so here's my question, and it's just because I just feel like I'm in muddy water here. Because we linked the two, if we deny one, we essentially deny both. If we approve one, we essentially approve both. Is that what I'm understanding?
If the Planning and Zoning Commission denies the addition of a new conditional use to the list in the NU non-urban resident district, you cannot grant the requested conditional use permit to the farmer location of Far Greenhouse.
Okay.
If you do approve the addition of a new conditional use to that district, you still have the right to deny the conditional use permit, regardless if it's at the farmer location of Far Greenhouse or anywhere else in the NU non-urban resident district.
Okay, so, all right, that's what that, thank you. That makes sense.
And just for clarification, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So at the last meeting, there was a litany of items listed by me, added with one by Commissioner Helfrey. The postponement will continue those being addressed. Is that correct?
Yes, Solus Agri-Science coordinated with Mr. Newberry and I, and we've given them the list of questions that the Planning and Zoning Commission provided, and they had a list of a couple of other things they noted that they want to address. So we've combined the two lists, and I know they're very close to being completed. In fact, they were hoping to have it completed for tonight, but again, just due to posting and considerations.
Okay. So with the agreement of the commission, I'd like to add one more to the list, and that is I'd like the commission to have or to receive an analysis of all potential potential outcomes and or consequences by virtue of granting the change to our code more in the broad sense that's being proposed, which encompasses the Far Greenhouse proposal, but could in the future encompass many others. And I just think that we need to be very clear and knowledgeable as to the implications of doing that.
We can certainly provide that information, and I think we can actually provide you a map that gives you all the potential locations in the NU non-urban resident district.
That would be great.
Thank you.
All right. So on the motion to postpone, I voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, PZ 22-23, Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The department is prepared for your consideration a request to withdraw a application for a conditional. Oh, I'm sorry. Jumped the gun.
Mr. Chair, PZ 22-23, Lillian and Douglas Nearing, 16541 Winterleaf Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011, care of Caitlin Blacklock, Sustainable Solar LLC, 4521 Town Court, St. Charles, Missouri, 63304.
All right, thank you. Okay, now Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Sorry about that. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department is prepared for your consideration a request to withdraw an existing request for a conditional use permit for a solar panel. The purpose of this withdrawal is that on November 13th, the City Council adopted new regulations regarding solar energy systems that no longer would require this request or proposal for the installation of solar panels on this home. The review authority would sit with the Department of Planning under the new regulations. So the department is requesting a motion, second, and vote to withdraw the requested conditional use permit.
All right. All right. Motion by Commissioner Clayton, second by Commissioner Rubis. Any discussion? All right. Did you say we can do voice vote? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. Motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, with
Yes,
your
sir.
permission, just as an update, the Department of Planning, at the conclusion of the new regulations being adopted by the City Council, had approximately 10 applications in for solar energy systems. Some were conditional use permits before this body. I am glad to tell you that through the efforts of Mr. Newberry, I believe we're down to 2 of the 10 are still in review, and the review is complete by the department. We're waiting for responses from the solar energy companies. So I think we've gotten 8 of those out in approximately less than 3 weeks.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so why is PZ 8-23 on here again?
That is the information report that we discussed. And so with your permission, Mr. Chair, I would ask Mr. Newberry to read the titles in, and then the department will request a withdrawal.
Okay.
PZ 8-23 N38 TB Realty Benton Homes 11605 Stutt Avenue Suite 102 St. Louis, Missouri 63141. And PZ 8A-23 Latitude N38 TB Realty and Benton Homes 11605 Stutt Avenue, Suite 102, St. Louis, Missouri 63141.
All right. Mr. Vinich.
Mr. Chair, with the action of the Planning and Zoning Commission relative to the now adopted letter of recommendation, this report is no longer necessary. So the department respectfully requests a motion, second, and a vote to withdraw these items from the current agenda.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Rubis, seconded by Commissioner Broyles. Any discussion? All right, and then voice vote, or all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, PZ 19-23.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I'm sorry. I have an item that I would like to speak to the commission about in person. It relates to the Architectural Review Board. And I've got a situation brewing that I may have to go remote momentarily.
Mhm.
And so would there be any objection to rearranging the agenda to at least to allow me to make comments on that item with you in person? Because I think I would do better with that if there are any questions.
I'm not opposed to that. Is there any other everyone in favor? All right. Okay, so we'll move the Architectural Review Board to next in line.
A request of the Department of Planning that seeks the Planning and Zoning Commission's authorization to post for a public hearing a matter relating to the city's Architectural Review Board, ARB, and its continued role in the city's land use and development processes, all wards.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich.
Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight a letter that seeks authorization to post for public hearing the matter relating to the Architectural Review Board. As is described in the report, the Architectural Review Board has been an integral part of the land use processes of the city since 1997. That date is not by accident. Andres Dewani and his team of consultants recommended that the Architectural Review Board be established. And over time, as has been described also in the report, there has been difficulty in finding membership, as well as over the course of time, ensuring consistent reviews in the opinion of the department. The request before you tonight is not to dissolve the board. It is to hold a public hearing on the merits of such or not. And so therefore, the department is respectfully requesting the opportunity for the public and the commission and then city council to consider such an action. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Bullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks to the commission for rearranging the agenda. I really appreciate that. Just real briefly, I wanted to mention a couple of things about this items before the commission, and I would recommend that we move forward with a hearing. First of all, I want to say that I appreciate greatly the efforts from every member of this board throughout our history. And I think certainly in the early stages of the city, it served a very good purpose. Over time, and I do differ somewhat with my reasoning for supporting this than as indicated in the department's report. principally because the reason that's given is the difficulty in getting people to serve. And that is a reason, but I think it's a secondary reason. I think the first reason that this should move forward is because it's really a practical one. The function of what's now being done by our Architectural Review Board is largely being done already at the Planning and Zoning Commission level, first of all. Secondly, to the extent we as a city decide that we need to have a separate group look at architectural things specifically, the Planning and Zoning Commission can have a formal subcommittee or committee of the commission set up to do exactly that. We can also hire architects as consultants if we have any issue with plans that are presented to the city, all of which, by the way, have to be signed off by licensed architects to begin with. So it's really a matter of redundancy and what it has essentially become at this point. I will speak to the efforts of getting people to wanting to serve. It has been troublesome. I have not, I've reached this point over 8 years, reluctantly, but unfortunately, from a practical standpoint, relative to obtaining residents wanting to serve. And here's the issue. So I started with, it was, as the speaker indicated earlier, limited only to licensed architects in Wildwood. I'll assume for the sake of argument that he spoke correctly. There are 14. You can do the math. Even if every one of them wanted to serve on this board and combining term limits to it, it's simply not going to work. And it didn't work. And because not all of them want to serve. And you have the term limit issue. So I started with expanding the qualification criteria for being on the board to allow engineers, landscape architects. Those are also in limited number. Many of them don't want to serve at all in government or on this board. And it has, in short, been very problematic of all of our boards and commissions to find, in order to comply with term limits and so forth, to find people to do it. But at the end of the day, to me, that is a secondary reason because it's a function that is largely being done by the commission as it is. And if we need to formalize that to continue some of that formality that we've had with respect to the ARB, there is I would submit, a much more efficient way to do it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Humphrey?
Well, I would vote to have the public hearing because I think that we should have as much public input on this as possible. So I'll make the motion to go forward with the public hearing. Thank you.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Broyles?
I would concur that oftentimes working on some of these committees, it's been helpful to have the ARB to give us some feedback on what they have decided upon. And I understand the difficulty in getting membership and professional membership involved. But from my point of view, having an opportunity to listen to what they have said has been helpful to us when we're deciding on how to form all of the information. And there's many ways that can be done. Some people don't always want to come forward because they don't know exactly what their responsibilities are. And that might be something that can be posted or talked about as well to encourage someone to come forward.
As a point of information, how big is the ARB supposed to be?
5 regular members, and there are alternates as well.
All right. And do we have 5 at the moment?
We do have a full architectural review board. I believe only one of them is an architect at this time.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Rubis?
The ARB, they're more concerned with fit, finish, color, design, things like that. They're not, like you said, any project's got to have engineering sign off and architect sign off. So we're really looking for somebody to take a look at a project and say, does this fit in our community? The way it's designed. We would rather have another color or something like that. I think a public hearing just brings it out in the open. It would have no effect on keeping or eliminating the ARB. That would still have to be another process.
Yes, sir. The public hearing is the first step, and it's to collect opinions, comments, and direction.
That sounds good.
All right. Commissioner Boyles.
All of the dimensions of having garages set back, that there's many facets. Many facets. Many facets.
And there are many facets to it, and there should be many facets to it. So just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we cease analyzing or have people analyze the many facets. What I'm suggesting is that we have the hearing, and what I believe ultimately is going to be in the best interest of the city and its residents is to have people do that, but in a different format that's going to work more practically and efficiently for the city. So it's just a matter of changing the structure of how we do it. It's not a matter of not doing it under any circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that.
All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Rubis.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn votes yes, I believe. Commissioner Broyles.
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
And Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, so let's see. Now, let's see. Back to PZ 19-23.
Just the title. PZ 19-23, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040.
All right. Mr. Vinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Department of Planning has prepared for your consideration tonight an information report with recommendation regarding the matter relating to aesthetic lighting sources. For lack of a better term, those are lighting sources that generally have a bulb of 30 watts or less. Obviously, the applications of aesthetic lighting sources has exploded across the country as well as here in Wildwood. It's difficult not to go by many subdivisions and not see low voltage lighting, aesthetic lighting in the backyard areas in conjunction with outdoor kitchens, porches, decks, etc. That explosion of applications with the introduction of light emitting diodes, LEDs, has created some concerns relative to the dark sky, trespass, and nuisance. And so tonight, the department has prepared a report with recommendation that asks the Planning and Zoning Commission to endorse the city attorney and the Department of Planning to better define low voltage lighting sources, particularly those that have incandescent bulbs of 30 watts or less, those lighting sources from light emitting diodes, and doing, for the most part, those based upon brightness, temperature, and wattage, and then also incorporate into a set of proposed regulations protections relative to glare, loss of night sky, trespass, property maintenance, and then nuisance. The key to this component is that there are already a number of regulations that exist throughout the city's codes that, for the most part, if cobbled together, could probably address a situation where a low voltage or aesthetic lighting source can be addressed. But as we found, cobbling different regulations together and then interpreting them to a certain outcome is never the best approach when you're trying to be consistent and fair. So tonight, the department has not provided you that set of regulations, but rather is seeking the authorization to prepare them based upon the 7 items that are described on page 4 of the information report. And again, defining wattage, defining light emitting diodes, LEDs, nuisance, trespass, and night sky, and then property maintenance, etc. Just as a sidebar, one of the items that's included reflects the city's efforts relative to dark sky protection. And certainly as part with any regulations, an education component is certainly essential and necessary. So the intent would be to receive a favorable vote tonight on these components and then have the city attorney and the department prepare regulations for further consideration by the commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Helfrey.
So, Mr. Vunich, the way I read this is it just affects the low voltage lighting. But so how does this work with if you have a spotlight on your house or a security light or a brighter driveway light for security? I mean, it just seems like if we do this, then we have to regulate something else, or if these are all regulated, something else might put out as much light. And so I'm just kind of wondering if we're not kind of going down the well. I don't know.
Well, certainly there's not a lot of communities that have looked at this particular issue, and I even believe there are fewer communities that have implemented regulations in this regard. So it is something relatively new. But from past code enforcement actions, when 2 neighbors don't necessarily get along, one does put a spotlight on their bedroom window. Now, if that spotlight has a wattage over 30 watts, then it's not low voltage, and the outdoor lighting requirements of the city apply, or some type of nuisance or another set of regulations. So as I mentioned, the intent is not to overregulate. The intent is to take the regulations that I believe we have in place that would be applicable and define them more clearly, place them in one section, and therefore make it easier to understand as a property owner and easier to enforce as the city.
Well, I thank you for explaining it to me. I still kind of just feel like I'm a little confused because it just seems like it's one part of all the lighting, but I think I understand what you're saying. So,
well, and as referenced in the report, our outdoor lighting requirements are for the most part silent relative to low voltage or low voltage lighting sources. For the most part, when that was developed many, many years ago, the thought was that those low voltage sources are used for architectural purposes, landscaping, etc. But what we're seeing is that has expanded and, as mentioned, exploded. We see low voltage lighting used in many, many more applications, and our outdoor lighting requirements haven't kept up. And so this is an opportunity to at least explore a set of what I would consider hopefully simple regulations to ensure that low voltage lighting doesn't create the problems do not create problems in the future.
okay, thank you very much.
Oh, do you have? Yeah, go ahead.
The term aesthetic. To me, that means like for beauty, to enhance. So we're talking about landscape lighting or lighting on a building to make it. We're not talking about commercial sign lighting.
That's correct. Commercial lighting is covered by our outdoor lighting requirements and address a range of characteristics.
I want to bring up one question. You mentioned the night sky, and in our last meeting, you said that Eureka and Chesterfield and probably Franklin County for that matter, none of them have any sort of outdoor lighting requirements. And if they're all polluting the night sky, is there any point in us trying to not? It's all going to trespass into our area anyway.
Well, if I alluded that other communities do not have lighting requirements, that was incorrect to me.
Okay.
What I see is the glow from the east, from the south, and from the north. And it all has to do with the shielding of the bulb, the light source, the height of the poles. The taller a pole is, the more the light radiates out and becomes less easy to control. So it's not so much that I've reviewed the regulations of these surrounding communities. It's more that empirical evidence that on a dark night without a moon, there's still glow on three sides of Wildwood.
Right.
And so from the perspective of the department, even in those micro settings, whether it's a subdivision or not, I think preserving the night sky, or at least not contributing to its loss, is a worthy goal.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Bolin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that residents of Wildwood come here for a number of reasons, and one of those is to not be faced with light pollution. And I'm getting ready to say, I'm not suggesting that you, when you made your comment about other cities, were in any way intending, for that to be a determining factor. But what I would say relative to that is, if every city around us quadrupled more than they have now in terms of the light emanating to our city, I would still fight for this, because it's why we come to Wildwood, and it's what makes Wildwood one of the many things that does, and it's one of the most important. And I just don't think we can in any way sacrifice and bring light pollution into our city. So I would wholeheartedly support moving forward with what the department is recommending in this regard. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
And then just one last item. The department, and I believe rightly so, is focused on the lighting sources and their impact in residential settings. For the most part, these low voltage types are aesthetic lighting. But there are study after study after study that discusses what light does to the bird population, insects, and wildlife. And so, as the mayor said, one of the things that we tried to do is not only control the amount of light and protect the night sky, but we recognize there's benefits to other things than just our residents.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Has anybody made a motion yet?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I will make a motion to accept your the department's recommendation. And I would also request that you find some lights that kill mosquitoes. Okay.
Well, if we kill mosquitoes, that's going to start harming all the other wildlife in the city. Seconded by Commissioner Clayton. All right. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Cohn.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn votes yes. Commissioner Broyles.
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis.
Yeah.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
And Mayor Bolin.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. PZ 20-23.
PZ 20-23, City of Wildwood, Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040.
All right, Mr. Vinich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Department of Planning has prepared for your consideration tonight an information report with recommendation regarding the potential for wayfinding signs in the town center area. As was discussed during the public hearing on this particular matter, the department continues to hear from businesses and others in our town center about certain conditions that preclude them from having good visibility from an arterial road, if not just a collector road. One instance is the building that's located to the south of the Grover Post Office, which has had, as referenced in the report, a number of tenants over a 10-year span that, for whatever reason, continue to leave the site, and another business makes an attempt to basically have a successful business there. Back a number of years ago, the City of Wildwood participated in a project called Great Streets, along with Ellisville and Baldwin. And the intent of the Great Street project was to improve Manchester Road between those communities, Baldwin, Ellisville, and Wildwood. And a component of that was actually the installation of wayfinding signs on Route 100. There are instances of those in Baldwin, Ellisville, and Wildwood. I think the Wildwood signs turned out the best relative to color and the aesthetics. But for the most part, we've applied them on Route 100 to identify major land uses or amenities. Shortly thereafter, there was a lengthy discussion amongst the Planning and Parks Committee of City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and City Council about doing additional wayfinding signs at a much smaller scale and height than what had been installed on Route 100, just due to the fact that the right-of-way widths aren't as great, the speeds are much less, etc. A consultant was engaged. The consultant came up with a design complementary to the Great Streets aesthetic and offered basically to create districts. So the signs would first identify the district, for example, the College District, which is by St. Louis Community College's campus, and then there either add some type of Wildwood Family YMCA, the community college, retail, restaurant, etc. Ultimately, that did not move forward. But even though it did not move forward, the request for options for better signage for certain businesses on our main arterial roadways, as well as those that are not, continued. And so tonight, the department is presenting a favorable recommendation to proceed forward with further study of wayfinding signs and has offered 4 districts for consideration. Those districts are described in the report, and they include the Route 66 district, which would be Old Manchester Road from approximately Taylor Road to Route 109 and beyond. The Bridge District, which would be the 2 pedestrian bridges plus the 3rd on Route 109. Again, the core Route 100 corridor, the College District as mentioned, and then our downtown district, which is where we are tonight. And just as a offering, the identification of the different amenities or land uses or options is provided as well. So from the department's perspective, wayfinding sign would need to meet all the requirements of federal, state, and local traffic matters. Certainly, we would not want to erect signs that were in the sight distance or caused visibility issues, and certainly would not want to place signs near the right-of-way that might cause a problem if hit and damage a car or harm a person. We would, for all of the discussions, first and foremost, work with our Department of Public Works and its director. But the department does believe that there is a merit to proceeding forward. And so as part of the recommendation is offering tonight pilot programs. Let's select one district. Let's look at what the signs might be like, how they would be installed, where they would be installed, and ultimately, if endorsed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and authorized by City Council, we would start with one area and see the success. And if this is successful, move on If not, then we would end and not proceed forward. So tonight you have a favorable recommendation regarding wayfinding signs. You have a favorable recommendation regarding the creation of districts, and then a suggestion to create a pilot program for one district and begin the process of creating that palette of signs for that district and all the steps that we follow thereafter, including their character, their style, their color, et cetera, et cetera. In conclusion, the department believes that there are many reasons for town center's success or failure, depending on who you talk to, but a consistent comment we hear is signage. And there is an opportunity, I think, to improve signage in a tasteful way under the control of the city to support our business community and others in town center. With that, the department has concluded its presentation, and after a motion is available for any questions regarding the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Runich. I always go to her first, so I'll go to Commissioner Broyles. Yeah.
Well, the one that seems most natural is the college district, because there's a core there of the Wildwood Family YMCA, the community college, that retail center that graciously built that garden wall, but for the most part, people complain that they can't see the businesses now, but it was a requirement of our plan. So I would think that that college district would be a good starting point, given the institutional nature, the commercial nature, and certainly there is a residential component of the Meadows of Wildwood.
All right, Commissioner Helfrey.
So first of all, I'll make a motion to accept you going forward with these things. Second of all, my question is, you used the example of the building behind the Grover Post Office, and I am not understanding which one of these districts that would fall into.
The Route 66 district, that Manchester Road area.
So it would go all the way down to where Schnucks is?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
for the most part, I had much of the old Grover areas, in my opinion, from Taylor Road, the roundabout west to Route 109, and then beyond to the Pond Historic District. So that's inclusive of Route 66, and we've signed it Route 66 for many, many years. And so the idea would be, again, to not necessarily extend it down to Schnucks. There's been so many changes down there in the alignment, et cetera. But that's a decision ultimately for the commission to recommend and council to adopt.
So, okay, so I made the motion, right, to say, yes, go forward with this, go forward. Okay, thank you.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Clayton. Any further discussion? Oh.
We will see these before you put them out, or is the pilot program going to go forth without us seeing anything else?
No, you will see them first as the Planning and Zoning Commission and make a recommendation to City Council. City Council then could refer it to the committee that oversees planning and parks. So there's multiple steps ahead, but you will be the first level of review and certainly discussion.
And then will the signs be business title specific?
Pardon?
Will they be business name specific?
That is the discussion that will follow. There's concerns about having a private business advertise in the public right of way. So in the report, the department speaks of restaurants and retail, but certainly that's something that can be explored. I know our Director of Public Works, Mr. Brown, is not a big fan of having private advertising in the right of ways. And certainly John Young, our city attorney, will opine as well. But for right now, we're just looking at identifying major land uses such as the community college, and then those types of activities that are in the vicinity of those major land uses such as retail, service, a hotel. We didn't name the hotel as part of Great Streets, but we did identify a hotel and theater. So if it's a use that's substantial in nature and a destination, certainly that would be one that we would consider.
Okay, I don't care if they're business specific. As a matter of fact, I think if they're going to be permanent fixtures, that probably that's not a very good idea to have them business specific, but I still would like to know how it's going to help that business that's behind that post office, the one that was there, that was the room sharing, and then the buildings behind what used to be Imogene's. I mean, there's got to be a way to address those, because those are the people that need it. When you drive down 109, you know that's the YMCA because it's got a big Y on it. You know there's a college there because they have a big sign that says the college is here. So if we're going to do these, my hope is that they're going to really help the people that truly will benefit from them.
Well, our city administrator, our former economic development manager, has been part of these discussions with the businesses and the brokers. And I think that's his goal as well. If we're moving forward, let's ensure that we actually address the clientele that has identified the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich.
Referencing the building behind the old city hall, or Imogene's, now bakery that I forget its name. They have a sign somewhere, but is it right? It's not right on Manchester, is it?
Yes, there is a small, what is described as an information sign that was authorized by a former city minister, Bill Kostick, in 1998 against the objections of the Director of Public Works and the Director of Planning, because it's in public right of way. But that particular instance, the city administrator wanted to assist those businesses and authorized a very small sign, but a sign.
Yeah. I remember seeing something, but I couldn't for the life of you tell you what's there right now.
It identifies, I believe, Midwest Oil, and then obviously CrossFit or Wildwood Fitness.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I hate seeing those buildings underutilized, and we need to do something.
Well, at the holiday tree lighting Saturday, I heard from a couple of business owners that signage is key. I like to think there's many options in our code relative to signs, from kiosk type to wall to freestanding monument. But obviously, this is one that presents a sign in a more visible location, if done appropriately, is a complement to the streetscape.
All right, so let's hear. I think we have a motion. Commissioner Rubis.
What are your specific requests? What is your specific request from us?
The department would respectfully request the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the information report as presented, which contains the three elements: the wayfinding signs, the pilot program, and then the district.
Think I do. Yeah. So any further discussion? All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Hofree,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
No.
Mayor Boland votes no.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. PZ 20 and 21-22.
PZ 20 and 21-22 Greenberg Development Company LLC, parenthetical Wildwood GBK LLC, PO Box 486, Wildwood, Missouri 63038, and it's located in Ward 8.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, this particular request should be familiar to you because back in October, the department presented a similar recommendation, but in that particular instance, it involved the multiple family component of the overall development. And as you'll recall, when the original development was endorsed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and sent forward to the City Council, the development entity, Greenberg, had yet to engage an actual developer for the components of the project. And so for the most part, Stock and Associates, along with the developer, we're working from best knowledge of what might be a successful design for the project, and equally important, comply with the city's regulations. In that instance, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended changes to the multiple family component to accommodate the developer, in this case, Green Street, which is well known throughout the metropolitan region. Tonight, the residential developer has reviewed the components of the ordinance that are applicable to the 14 lots and is requesting several changes. These changes relate to the front porch areas, and specifically to the front porch areas. Originally, the depth and the extent of the front porch across the front of the dwelling. Then that the rear access to garages via a street or alley be eliminated. Then also the soundproofing requirements that were established originally for the dwellings be eliminated, and then some discussion relating to Eastgate Lane. The department has reviewed all 4 of the components, and as referenced in the report, did not support the reduction in the width of the porch from 6 feet to 4 feet. Consistently, since the inception of the town center plan, the porch has been no less than 6 feet, but preferably 8 feet. In instances where 4-foot porches have been authorized elsewhere outside town center, inevitably what you'll see is the porch is not wide enough to accommodate an actual use once furniture is placed upon it. The 6-foot depth is essential. The developer, per discussions as the report was being completed, is willing to retain that 6-foot depth. The developer has asked, though, that in instances of the 50% frontage, that 46% be considered, and in a few instances, if a 3-car garage is authorized, it dropped to 36%. I provided before you tonight, and Mr. Newberry forwarded to you today, the letter from Mr. Stock relative to McKelvey's Homes request. The department does not object to this particular request. In the instances where we do have 3-car garages and the front porch may decrease from 50% as a minimum to 36% as a minimum, we'll also see a reduction in lots, because that means 3-car garages are being preferred, and the 3-car garages need more lot width. So instead of 14 potential lots, it would be 13. So a reduction in density is an outcome of that as well. But again, the 6-foot depth would remain unchanged, and a slight adjustment to that coverage along the front of the dwelling. In terms of the rear access and the garages, the department notes in its explanation that for the most part, the dwellings that have been approved in town center of late are all front entry types. The exception now is the alleys or service lanes. And in this instance, we would apply the same standards of ensuring that the garages are the de-emphasized portion of the front of the elevation of the dwelling and not the prominent component. And again, would ensure that all of the other items that have been required in where front-facing garages are part of town center are applied here. In terms of the soundproofing, as you'll recall, originally the 13 lots fronted directly onto Manchester Road and Taylor Road. There was really no separation between the two except the slight build-to line. Now with the new plan, as witnessed in the revised drawings, all of those homes have been pulled off the street. A bioretention facility is next to the street, and then ample green space that separates the two. So from the standpoint of soundproofing relative to Manchester Road and Taylor Road under the original design, the department thinks the revised design achieves the same goal. And then finally, with regards to Eastgate, the department had the width at 26.1 to accommodate on-street parking. Developer has requested 24, which is satisfactory because again, it precludes on-street parking and probably in this setting, that's necessary. So the department has prepared changes to accommodate the reduction in the coverage or extent of the front porch and eliminated the rear entry requirement as well as the soundproofing as requested by the petitioner. Those changes are reflected in the conditions and highlighted as such. And so with that, the department will be available for questions or comments after a motion is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. One quick question. Is there still going to be a sidewalk connection from the cul-de-sac to the sidewalk on Manchester?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion or Commissioner Rubis?
The eliminating the extra sound, those are for the detached villas, or whatever you call it. What is extra soundproof?
Well, from the perspective of the department, it was upgraded windows and doors, any of the openings. Obviously, windows, certain types of window that may be found in less expensive homes do not provide the level of soundproofing. There were obviously the installation levels and then thickness of drywall, etc. Mr. Gross, who was a home builder, may be able to help me better than I've just explained it, but the intent is if we're going to put the homes so close to the right-of-way and busy right-of-ways, we should ensure, at least from the perspective of the city, that we've done everything we can to minimize this amount of sound.
Yeah. And the current request is to this with the elimination of that extra sound.
Yes, and as you can see, none of the dwellings now are along the edge of right-of-way. In fact, two lots abut the right-of-way, but there is an area of separation, and that is the side of the home, which in most instances doesn't have as many openings, windows, and certainly from the perspective of the department are less inclined to have the problem we associated with the other design.
So from the department's perspective, it's not an unreasonable.
The department did not think so, given what the modification, this design that you see before you tonight.
Commissioner Helfrey.
With the front porches in the garage, those are the two that I want to ask you about. So if we approve this as I'm reading I've read their letter, I read all the conditions that you said, and then when it comes time for them to do the site development plan and all that stuff, are they going to be able to come back to us and go, oh shoot, we've decided that it's not going to work that way either, or are they going to be held to this?
From the perspective of the department, I know of at least 4 conversations between the engineer and McKelvey Homes that occurred between early Friday morning and this morning, so over the weekend. And from the perspective of Stock and Associates, George Stock, I asked them to do a review of the components relative to this particular area of the site and make sure we capture them all, because we're not coming back is basically the direction I gave them.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Vunich, and I'll vote to approve the recommendation of the city.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Helfrey, Commissioner Blood. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I think in their letter, they noted that there may be up to 6. And if 6 are proposed, then that's a reduction then from 15 to 13 lots. Now, well, again, remember a typical 3-car garage, if not side entry or rear entry, needs about an 85 to 90 foot wide lot to accommodate it. I think that's a comfortable space. In this instance, we would expect that it would not be three garage doors in a single line. There'll be offset. And I think that's reflected in some of the designs that were provided by McKelvey Homes for discussion tonight. So the intent is, and always is, to de-emphasize the garage if it's front facing and ensure that the component of the home front entry is what people see first and see most. Yes. And I think that's reflected in again, some of the architectural drawings, the renderings, as you can see here. Now, again, this porch doesn't meet the requirements of the city, and this is one that department reviewed, and it's like, no, that's not town center. We don't have anything like that. And so that was the direction that was given to Stock and Associates and the applicant at McKelvey Homes. It's just not wide enough, and it needs to be deep enough. The overall site, inclusive of the pickleball courts, is about 11 acres. The multiple family component will be probably on about 5 to 6 acres, which leaves roughly about 2 acres here, 2 to 2.5. Mr. Cohn may know, obviously he's going to abstain from any vote tonight, but he may know the dimensions better than I.
All right, Commissioner Rubis. The other request that they have is the elimination of language for Eastgate Lane. I don't think there is an Eastgate Lane, but I couldn't find in this where Eastgate Lane was even mentioned.
Well, to kind of give you perspective, Eastgate Lane is the public street that the drive-through from Walgreens accesses out onto. And then there is right now a three-way stop at Main Street. There is a curb cut that's been constructed for that. The department is not endorsing the elimination of Eastgate Lane. All it is doing is narrowing it and making it 24 feet in width, with still sidewalks and green space and landscaping on either side. But no, Eastgate would extend south from Main Street, go into the site, and then ultimately exits on Taylor Road to the south.
No cut on man.
No cut on Manchester.
Why would they want to eliminate the language about Eastgate Lane?
From the multiple family developers' perspective, it's the main ingress egress to the development itself and the parking areas. And so I think they believe if it's private, they have more control over it. And that's a concern of the department because, as we know, private alleys don't stay private. And in town center, key component of new urbanism is connectivity, and we can't have something that the public can't use.
So their request to eliminate Eastgate language is okay with the department?
It is not, and all we've done is just change the dimension, the width of that paved area from 26.1 feet to 24.
We approving the elimination of Eastgate Lane language?
No, sir. No, sir. Yes, so you can enter from Taylor and access Main Street and vice versa.
Eastgate Lane, is that will go under the Sky Bridge?
Yes. And there'll be some things we have to do with the airspace to make it work. But again, we've done that with our pedestrian bridges over Route 100. You basically, you lease the airspace or you have an agreement to use the airspace.
Commissioner Helfrey?
The garages, Joe, isn't it part of the regulation right now that they have to be set back 15 feet from the front? So that will happen on these houses?
Well, that was certainly the recommendation of the town center planning.
Yes.
Panel, teacup. However, as you know, over the course of time, we've adjusted that based upon site characteristics and input from neighboring properties. For example, Ashley Grove, they wanted to do side entry. There were concerns about visibility from Stone Mill. We ended up doing some things to make that less visible. And one thing we did was we added we took the third car bay, moved it around. So basically it shielded the front. We made the front entry garage component to shield the two side entry garage doors. So we'll work best. You'll see it on site plan early on and certainly can comment, and we'll let you know if there's a problem.
All right. So we've got a motion, but we don't have a second yet.
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Rubis. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Abstain.
Commissioner Cohn abstains. Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Abstain.
Motion carries, 2 abstentions. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Next, PC 39-94, if I'm haven't lost my space.
St. Louis County's PC 39-94, the Grover Company, located in Ward 8.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, this particular item should be familiar to you as well. At our last meeting in November, the owners of the Dog Cafe and retail store requested alterations to the governing ordinance to accommodate fencing in the front yard area, as well as the deletion of the landscaping component for the same. Also, there was a request to accommodate the clearing that had occurred in an area of the lot that had been identified on the approved site development plan as protected. Tonight, after meeting with the 2 applicants, petitioners, and owners of the facility, they have agreed to remove the fencing section from the front yard area. They have agreed to remove the fence as constructed and reconstructed per the approved plan. And ultimately, the department is supporting both of those, along with accommodating the clearing that did occur. There's nothing that the city can do to return that area that was cleared. But certainly, as is mentioned in the report, the department is expecting a landscape plan that shows the restoration of the area and the protection of the soils and the nearby creek. So tonight, the department is presenting a favorable recommendation that would allow fencing from the rear line of the building around the sides and to the back of the lot. The fence would be 6 feet in height, vertical slats, and the finished side facing the neighboring properties. Along with that, the department is endorsing the clearing that occurred without the benefit of authorization, but conditioned again on a restoration landscape plan. The favorable recommendation is for you tonight for action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Discussion or a motion?
It's a mighty lesson learned.
Well, in discussions with them, they're new to the development business. I believe they're doing the best they can. I don't see it as malicious, but certainly it's got to be corrected.
Mayor Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will we see final elevations as to what this will look like from all perspectives before it is put in place?
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest as part of any motion that be a condition of it. Just so there's a clarity to the 2 owners and there's no confusion.
Exactly. I would agree with that. Thank you.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Mr. Vunich, what is the fence gonna be made out of? Is it gonna be wood?
Wood fence, yes.
Okay. Well, I will make a motion to support your, the city's recommendation, with, the mayor's caveat that it, before they do any work, that we see elevations from all sides, from them. So that's my motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion, Councilman Brost, second or
Yeah,
question?
second and a question. Joe, you mentioned vertical fencing,
Mhm.
and then there's a photo here that just shows it's wood but horizontal.
That's the current fence. There was some confusion on the engineer. That's why I think it's important you see it in final
Okay.
form.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Helfrey, Commissioner Rubis.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn votes yes. Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's see here. PZ 15-17.
PZ 15-17, Babbler Farms LLC, care of Tom Roberts, 550 Lori Lane, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005, located in Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Tonight, the department is presenting to you a revised recommendation report relative to a site development plan that was approved for a large water feature and associated waterfall in July of 2020. At the time the site development plan was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, there were a number of items that were identified and conditioned on that approval. Those items are identified in the report tonight. They related to a pre-treatment requirement at the area where the main drainage tributary empties into the large water feature. There was a requirement for all permitting associated with any component of the large water feature and associated waterfall be completed, and then a bond provided in the amount of $5,000 to ensure that the large water feature and associated waterfall would not become a nuisance or a maintenance issue for any adjoining property owner. Two of those three conditions have been met, and ultimately a site development plan was submitted and authorized by the city and released to the property owner so as the structural or building component of the process could be completed, which for all intents and purposes was the retaining wall that forms what I would consider the east side of the large water feature and that particular item. Over the course of time, there has been a number of conversations with the property owner relative to the permitting process. There's two components to the permitting process: the electrical in association with the pumps, and then the plumbing in association with the pumps themselves and the process associated with bringing water from the large water feature up the hill to the top of the waterfall and then discharging it. Over the course of time, there have been setbacks and progress, but all in all, the department has never wavered, as was alluded tonight, from the fact that a permit is required. And the report before you tonight does not endorse eliminating the permitting requirement. In fact, the property owner has been advised that that permit requirement isn't proceeded forward. The department will, for the most part, follow through with the summons and have the matter go to municipal court. The mistake the department made in 2020 was tying a permit process to a site development plan. The site development plan is an integral component of the overall conditional use permit. Typically in section 3, it says the plan must be submitted and approved and acted upon by the commission. That is the final step, so to speak, in the zoning process for a conditional use permit. So we the department, Travis and I, have been holding the final step in that because we have not concluded the site development plan because of the permitting process. And that final step is recording the conditions and the legal description for the permit with St. Louis County. We can't because the permit isn't complete, which means all of those conditions, in the opinion of the department, despite what was said tonight, remains in limbo. And the intent tonight is not to give a free pass to anyone. The intent tonight is not to put anyone at risk from a public health or safety standpoint. The intent is to conclude the zoning process by allowing the conditions and legal description to be recorded, and then ultimately address the single and remaining issue, which is the permitting. If the property owner chooses not to proceed forward, there is an enforcement process. The enforcement process isn't going to be quick. It isn't probably going to be satisfactory to any of the parties. But to date, the department believes that the property owner has continued to communicate with the city regarding the process, frustrations, and now what he believes is an impasse. And as mentioned, the department is not endorsing a waiver of the permits. It doesn't have that authority, nor does the Planning and Zoning Commission. All the Planning and Zoning Commission is being asked tonight is to separate two what I would consider unlike components that were married together with the best of intents by the department that need to be separated so we can proceed forward with the zoning process and let the permit process stand alone and work from that perspective forward. So tonight, department is presenting exactly that, a request to remove the permitting requirement from the site development plan approval. By doing such, you are not waiving the permitting requirement. Either the commission or the department have that authority, nor would it ever recommend such to this body, or would it ever take such an action. However, zoning's one thing, permitting is another, and I regret that we kind of married the two back in 2020. Is there any questions or comments? After a motion, the department would be certainly glad to try to address them at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Commissioner Helfrich.
So first of all, I would like to say that I recognize all of the time and effort and hard work that you and Travis Lynn Department have done regarding this and all the years that it's been in front of us. And I personally take offense of anybody implying that you have done otherwise and in good faith. So that's what I have to say about that. Second of all, as far as I'm asking you to just give me a little bit of a training course here. Normally, in the normal course of business, had this been done the proper way, it would have been a site development plan first, and then have gotten approval, and then would have gotten permits, and then gone from there. But because it wasn't done properly in the first place, we went through all of this with the CUP. And so my question is, I heard you say multiple times that we're not giving them a free pass, and I understand that. But my question is, in any other time, had we done this the proper way, would the site development plan have been affected by him getting his permits or not? Had it been done in the proper order?
No, the site development plan would have been presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission if compliant to all the permit conditions with a recommendation from the department to approve. That is the key that unlocks the permitting process with St. Louis County. They will ask for municipal zoning authorization. Municipal zoning authorization is a set of plans, approved plans. So to kind of give you a bit of background, certainly, as the property owner mentioned during public comment, the department did issue the occupancy permit for the home. To date, whether right or wrong, the department has never kept the person out of their new home over ground cover, grade, or in this instance, an accessory structure, a large water feature and a waterfall. It just isn't something the department feels is correct. And so the occupancy permit was issued for the dwelling, acknowledging that there's a lot of things on this property that obviously are need to be addressed. And shortly thereafter, we began that process. If we approved the site development plan in 2020, we started this process in 2017. 3 years it took to get to the site development plan, and now we're at another almost 4 years for this component of the process. And so from the perspective of the department, certainly we wish everybody would follow the procedure. Submit a plan, get approval, get your permits. A lot of people don't know the process, or a lot of people don't think that it's applicable to them. Whatever the reason may be, it's not, let's say, unusual. And we do the best we can to address it as we can. But again, in this instance, the department married the two components, a zoning and a permitting component, together through the site development plan, and it just hasn't worked. And despite what the community may think, it's not because we weren't trying to protect the public's health, safety, and general welfare. We were. And I still think we can do it, regardless if the site development plan's approved or not approved. We're still going to address our primary charge, and that's to protect people.
Do we know what permitting is left to do, and why isn't it? Do we know? Is it
large impoundments of water like this that accept drainage from, as described, over sheet flow, over grass, over rock, over whatever it may be, paved surfaces? There's E. coli, there's geese, there's ducks, there's animals in the water. It all creates kind of a let's say, less than pristine water situation. The old plumbing code didn't require pretreatment, but since the property owner didn't get permits under the old plumbing code, the new plumbing code applies, and it does require pretreatment. And so we're not retroactively saying, yes, just because you built it in 2017 or whatever the date may have been, we're going to allow you to basically be considered under the old plumbing code. No, we're saying you have to comply. And that's why we're at this impasse. And that's why the zoning process, in my opinion, is still in limbo. And we need to solve that.
So if we approve this, what your recommendation is today, we're saying we're just going to sign up on the site plan only, but that the permitting process, the homeowner still is required to do the permitting. And what kind of teeth do we have to make sure that's done?
Well, I've talked with the property owner, and I've explained to him, you won't leave many options if you say you're not going to do it. We'll issue a summons, and we'll ask you to appear before the municipal judge and explain why you can't do it. The property owners responded that, this has gone on too long. I'll be glad to get my attorney involved. And so that's no concern of yours. We'll enforce the codes. We do it all the time. We try to do it with a reasonableness. But in this instance, if I'm being told I'm not going to do it, that doesn't leave much leeway relative to the next step.
Okay. So this is a cleanup item for the city. And so I will vote yes for getting the paperwork straight.
Well, Commissioner Helfer, you're being kind and say it's a cleanup item. It's probably an error I made back in 2020 when I tied two things that probably shouldn't have been. Because process-wise, there's the site plan, then permits. I put them together, and it just didn't work. Because we're 3 years or more later, and we're still arguing about the permit.
All right. Well, I've made my motion, and I appreciate all the work and time you've put into this, Mr. Greenwich. Thank you.
Commissioner Rubis.
The CUP, that's what changes the zoning, correct?
It doesn't change the underlying zoning designation. What it does is grants rights that normally wouldn't be associated.
So we're there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's done. Then the next step would have been to have a site development plan.
Correct.
Has that been offered?
Yes, and we approved the site development plan probably about a year ago or so. So as we could begin the civil component, the civil engineering component relative to the improvements on site. And Mr. Roberts has received permits for the retaining wall. As I say, we're kind of stuck on two things relating to plumbing and electrical.
Okay. Does Wildwood have sole authority over the water, the lake or the pond, or whatever we want to call it, the water basin? Or is St. Louis County involved in that?
MDNR has a role relative to the dam. And I think the dam is 35 feet or greater in height, but we required the property owner to get authorization or at least submit plans to MDNR. So they've had a role. Relative to the conditional use permit, no, St. Louis County is a contractual agent for permitting purposes only.
So what we're being asked to do is to approve the site development plan?
Yes, minus that one condition.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
don't want to interject, but Ms. Depler did try to raise her hand a few times.
Oh, okay.
She's so-
I apologize for that. Commissioner Depler, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to get some clarification. So clearly the petitioner has not followed through with the permitting process. And I realized that the site development plan and the permitting process have been combined together. I'm still not sure why disconnecting those two pieces is going to make any difference in him actually following up with the permitting process.
I think it best.
That's
Sorry.
going, I apologize, but is there something that's going to prompt him to actually follow through on that piece by doing it this way?
As far as the department is aware, the intent is not to move forward with the permitting process, which will lead to the enforcement process through our municipal court. But for example, as part of the conditional use permit, the planning and zoning required a inspection of the facility at a certain point after the effective date of the conditional use permit. Since we haven't finished the conditional use permit, which is inclusive of the site development plan, we have yet to conduct that inspection. That's why I say the zoning's kind of in limbo. There's these lists of things that are required, but we really haven't finished the process yet because we tied what typically is a non-related process, permitting, to the site development plan. So we've kind of we've been kind of dancing around the conditions of the permit while we try to resolve the permitting issue.
So would there be a possibility if we do disconnect these separate pieces, we still have an opportunity to do that disconnection? And can we revisit the approval of the site development plan?
Well, as I mentioned, there is a requirement, and I'm trying to find it. When we approved the conditional use, when the Planning and Zoning Commission granted the conditional use permit, it said that the permit shall be authorized for a period of 1 year with any adjustments to be based upon compliance to the requirements of the same. Renewal request shall be the responsibility of the owner operator and be done 2 months in advance of the deadline. So as I say, we put in things that assume we would be complete with the zoning process, and then we would move on to the implementation of the other conditions of the permit. Since we've been held up, we've kind of been in limbo, as I've described now multiple times, and I apologize. So again, the intent is not to provide a waiver, a relief to the permit. The intent is to finish our zoning process so we can basically take a look at the conditions of the permit and start implementing them all, not just a few.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Glad to do it. Hope it was helpful.
If we don't do anything, where are we?
Well, we'll still be in the zoning limbo, as I call it, but eventually, as I've described to the neighboring property owners and the property owner where the water feature is located. I'm going to have to turn it over to municipal court if no one's going to do what the permit requires.
What if municipal court doesn't resolve this, or is this elevated then to St. Louis County Circuit Court?
Well, certainly municipal court is, there is a fine structure, and the judge can obviously ask for compliance and give a probationary period to achieve compliance. And then, but as I've explained to many people over the course of time, it's not a very effective process. It takes a lot of time. Property owner can ask for a change in venue and move it to circuit court. Circuit court has to deal with murders and robberies. Now they want to look at, should there be pre-treatment for a large water feature? So going to circuit court generally means it gets lost in the shuffle and it takes even more time. Now, that's my impression of it. Mr. Young deals with it on a day-to-day basis. He may have a different opinion.
Just my impression that if we don't do this, we're in worse shape than if we do it, for everybody's concern.
Well, back in 2020, I would have said no to that statement, but now it's 3+ years later and we're still, I'm getting sunshine requests from the Hudsons every week. I'm getting calls from Mr. Roberts asking for us to address this matter. And so we've got to do something. And from the perspective of the department, let's fix the zoning, finish it, and then we'll take the permit as a standalone issue.
So we have a motion. I don't believe we have a second. Second by Councilman Bros. Oh,
Would it be inappropriate for me to ask Mr. Brost, since you used to be in business, building, what, your thoughts on this?
I'm happy to talk about it.
Thank you.
I think, what Mr. Vunich is saying is, I think is good. I think it helps, it's like a puzzle. Let's not try to put every piece in it at one time. It gets more complicated. The process, unfortunately, I've met everybody who still remains seated here about this issue years ago, and unfortunately, we're still here now. I think Mr. Roberts has done a lot to try to work with the city and the neighbors. I've been to the property. But yeah, I would say to dissect it and reduce the scope, even if it becomes reduced the scope as to what the municipal court has to hear, would be positive. But typically you would have like the zoning would definitely be separate than the permitting process. And that's sort of like a circular equation, I guess is what, or limbo. But I would say it would be beneficial, and I don't think while I would like to see the matter gone, period. And we all would, but there are going to be happy people and unhappy people on that one. I think it does help. It advances the ball a little bit. And I, if I were you, I would have stopped answering my phone a long time ago. So you're a much better man than I am.
not at this time. Yeah, we do. All right. All right, roll call vote. Oh, sorry, Mayor Bolin.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question, just to synthesize this, right or wrong, the city approved the site development plan that included the waterfall initially, that then obviously took a fair amount of money to construct. And I would ask Mr. Vintage, is that correct?
The waterfall was constructed prior to the site development plan being approved, but we've caught all of that up and we have now an approved site development plan.
Did the city ever approve the waterfall?
Yes, We have a conditional use permit that was granted by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we have an approved site development plan.
Thank you.
The error, Mr. Mayor, was when I linked the permitting to the site development plan. And obviously, I thought it was the appropriate approach. It's not. And we won't see that again.
All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn votes yes. Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Bolin.
Abstain.
Mayor Bolin abstains.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's see here. So adoption of our 2024 meeting dates, since this is December now.
Discussion of the Planning and Zoning Commission's 2024 meeting schedule and start time.
Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, recognizing the hour, the department will be very brief with its presentation. It's presenting the scheduled meeting dates for the upcoming commission year. Just a few things to note. It remains more often than not on the first Monday. Start time still remains at 6:30, as you all decided a few months ago. And there are 2 months that have a different date than the first Monday. That's January 16 due to the New Year holiday, and that's a Tuesday because of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And then the meeting in September is on a Tuesday because of the Labor Day holiday. And the department's just asking for a motion, second, and a voice vote to adopt the calendar as presented.
What is the July meeting date?
The July meeting actually worked out very nicely for all of us. The Monday is on the 1st of the month.
Okay. All right.
Motion to approve.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Commissioner Broyles and Commissioner Depler. Any discussion? I think we can just do a voice vote on this. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Work program items for 2023.
Update on the progress relative to the Commission's 2023 work program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, with the hour, we'll be brief, but I do not want to brush over the work that we've completed in 2023. Just a few things that we did want to note about the 2023 work program. You all finished the update to the tree regulations, and we told you at the time when you recommended approval for that what we would follow with the update to the sustainable planting guide and tree manual. Currently, there's a subcommittee of the Planning and Parks Committee working on pulling those components together, and that will return to you in 2024. And then I just also wanted to note that the last item, the update of the handouts and applications, has been on the work program, I think, since its inception in 2019. It's shaded out to be removed because it was completed with the implementation of the MyGov permitting software. And the department is available for any questions if you have any questions about the work program.
Look, I'm hungry too. So but I wanted to ask what you said about that. Just now, you said all the handouts and stuff that we got when we first got on this board are now done, updated?
No, ma'am. I'm just referring specifically to the permit application.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This, and Mr. Chair, this is just an update item, so there's no motion.
All right.
Requested.
Let's see here. In our calendar year 2024 work program.
Planning and Zoning Commission's 2024 work program.
And Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department did want to focus on the items that are identified as high priority in the 2024 work program. The first of which is what I mentioned previously with the landscape manual and sustainable planting guides. You will see that in the first quarter of the year. The subcommittee has a goal of finishing its work by, is it April, Joe? I think it's April. And then the department also wants to note that we're going to place a high priority on updating the town center development manual, which has been a topic of conversation with the recent increase in development interest in the town center. So we're going to have that document working on that. And then I'll just jump down to the fifth item under high priority. The department does intend to also have a comprehensive review and update of the outdoor lighting requirements to the commission for consideration in the first part of 2024 as well. And again, there are other items in the work program that have been identified. If there are any questions about any of those items, the department's available. And in this instance, Mr. Chair, I believe we are asking for a motion, second, and vote to adopt the 2024 work
All
program.
right. Is there a motion, Commissioner Helfrey? Second. Seconded by Commissioner Rubis. Any discussion? Yeah.
Training opportunities. I know it's low. I mean, is there any training plan for the department in 24?
Good.
Well, first and foremost, Mr. Clayton is participating in a training opportunity that's offered through the University of Missouri, St. Louis. And Mr. Young will be providing training on a couple of items, I think, over the course of the new year. And we'll probably start as soon as we can, maybe January, February, with just kind of going over Robert's rules, some of the things that a lot of the new members may not know. And Mr. Young has a very good presentation. So, yes.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And motion to adjourn.
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Councilman Brost. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.